conversation that we'll be having with Claude Alvarez, Director, Goa Foundation, and the foremost environmental activist Goa has had. Claude, on the Environment Day, you're sitting in Goa. What are your thoughts with regard to the way we are treating environment in Goa?
Well, I just went out on the balcony because the monsoon was arriving, and there is this awesome picture of the clouds coming in. There is a stability to the monsoon because it comes every year approximately on June 5th. And that regularity of the monsoon is probably the most consoling factor on the environment front so far. Of course, our anti-environmentalists will also claim that, see, the monsoon has come on time, so we have not caused any damage to the climate or to the natural systems. So what are you claiming? What are you're crying about? So, but on the other hand, if you look at the environment scenario as a whole, I don't look at it as we have gained or they have gained or whatever it is. But I look at this, when you're dealing with an environmental issue, it's only us. There's no them. You're looking at the impact of an environmental disaster. It doesn't segregate into those who are responsible for butchering the environment and those who protested against the environmental, damage being caused or something. All of us are in the same boat when it comes to environmental damage. Therefore, when we look at all these things, look at what has happened in the last 1 year at least, where we have had the environment movement have had some gains, and the environment movement has also lost something.
So what are the gains and losses, Claude? Sorry to just cut you. I'm saying, what are the gains and losses? What are the losses for the environment movement first, and then what are the gains?
Well, the losses are largely in terms of policy. We have lost a lot in terms of the decisions that the government has made in respect of, projects, in respect of policy decisions, in respect of laws that are being amended to relax the controls on big business and corporates and so on. And in terms of gains, we would naturally take the CEC report, which has almost buried the doubling of the railway track and has also dealt a somewhat strong blow to the Tamil Nadu project. The setback we have is in the Vaingini beach, certainly, where we have lost an entire beach and some crazies have put a wall across it. And these are the two premier institutions in Goa. One is the Fomentos and the other, of course, is the Indian hotel company that is the owner of the Taj. They are both in this together, according to me. So when you look at Melauli, we have won. Because Melauli, we saved all our forests, our forest areas. I don't think there's any other substantial thing that we can see at the moment, because most of our environmental battle last year was on Mole. We have lost a good environmentalist, Julio Cedric Agia. He was one of our preeminent, leaders in the administration. We have lost proceeding before the deputy collector for the railways acquisition. Of course, it's a wrong decision, but once a wrong decision is taken, you have to still go and appeal it and get it set aside and so on. So it's a sort of a mix. But in environmental issues, all are mixed, always a mix. Some gain, some lose.
Claude, I was actually coming to some of the points that you've raised. There's a lot to unpack in what you just said. There's one trend very disturbing that we have witnessed, is that the fundamental premise before any project is passed is taking the people into confidence. Now, with regard to both the double tracking issue and the Mole issue, or if you take into account the CZMP, the underlying thread has been that the people have not been taken into confidence. And you obviously been in the forefront of highlighting that, especially with regard to the manner in which the CZMP hearings were carried out. The coastal zone public hearings were carried out. They were actually a farce. Secondly, if you look at the double tracking, there are so many people, over 500 people who actually objected to the way the double tracking was going on. It was an objection which was offered to them by the competent authority. When they went to object to their lands being taken over, they realized that after a long period of time, the deputy collector summarily dismissed all the petitions with one stroke of the pen. Now, in both these things, we see this pattern. Don't you agree?
See, we are still, I keep telling people, we are still with a colonial government. We have a democracy in form, but in respect of the people who have been elected, ultimately they become no more different from the colonial masters, because the approach is, I am now a minister of the government, I am the government, and for 5 years, because the people have elected me, you shut up and I will do what government wants to do. And invariably what government wants to do is what Mr. Cabral wants, or Mr. Sawant wants, or what Pimento wants. These are the people who decide what should be done. And so, if you look at the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we've had this constant fight going on between people and government on what should be permissible in Goa, what is good for Goa, what is bad for Goa, what will destroy Goa, what is important for us to do in such a way that we hand over Goa to the next generation in the same form in which we received Goa. So this conflict doesn't show any signs of ending. Even after the NGT said that the public hearing was a farce and said that you hold a fresh public hearing, the response of Mr. Cabral, the first response was, anyway, they have only come up with some minor errors. They have not disputed the plans. And we have got 1 month's time. And within 1 month's time, we will listen to everybody and we will submit the plans. So he is very firmly convinced that there is no need for any changes. There is really no need to listen to anybody. Nobody has got anything worthwhile to say. And I sitting in Kuchure, can decide what will happen in 105 kilometers of Goa's coastline. And all the people who reside in that area, they don't know anything. They are supposed to be residing there, they fish there, they cultivate there, they know the rivers, they know the fish, they know the sand mining, they know everything. But they are not supposed to have any opinion on the coastal zone management plan. So every time you have more and more conflicts because the government refuses at the design stage of consulting with the public.
Claude, tell me, the thing is, what is this whole delay in Goa getting a proper coastal plan doing to Goa? How are we disadvantaged without a proper plan?
See, as long as there is no coastal zone management plan, at the moment we are protected because the NGT has passed an order saying no fresh projects can be approved in the CRZ until the coastal zone management plans are approved. That's the reason why the Goa government is bugged. That's why they want to get a plan passed. Because once they get a plan passed, they will be able to go and approve hundreds of projects in the CRZ. Because right now, that is the bottleneck.
Right. Okay, Claude, my next question has got to do with people and the way environment is getting destroyed in the villages and in the smaller clusters. Firstly, if you look at the rampant hill cutting that is taking place, if you look at the garbage situation which is becoming a mess, if you take coastal erosion that is happening, but there are a lot of these things that can be controlled at the local level if the panchayats and the people get together. If you look at hill cutting, for instance, or if you look at garbage, for instance, these are things that can be controlled by the panchayat. They don't even, need to involve the bigger, larger government, as it were. So, don't you think that apart from the fingers that we are rightly pointing at the government, don't you think that we should also look inwards and say that this problem of destroying environment in whatever form through corruption or otherwise is happening even at the grassroots levels?
Well, that is largely because for several years people have just ignored the panchayats because they said the panchayats are just, a body to give you a rubber stamp with a construction license so that you can start the construction. Because if you don't do that, then they will come and extort money from you. So people have always treated the panchayat as a low down clerk for giving them a development permission. They have never seen the panchayat as a statutory body, as a constitutional body, which is on par with the state government in terms of its constitutional, rights and powers. And it's also a sphere of influence. There is a concurrent list for the central government, state list for the state government, but Panchayati Raj has introduced a panchayat list, which means in that panchayat list, only the panchayat can take decisions. State government cannot take, central government cannot take. But the baggage we have inherited of panchayats always being low class bodies, not only low class bodies, being actually populated by people who really had no other work to do. Anybody who had any serious work to do, he was in college or he was in university or he was working in some bank or he was working in some corporation. Nobody really thought that these were important constitutional positions. And so you had the village sacristan who would be a punch member. You would have a local mason who would be. I'm not complaining about any of these, but if you are going to make a switch from the old panchayat system to a new panchayat system where the panchayat is the boss, then you need people who at least understand what the Panchayat Raj Act is about. What are its provisions? What is panchayat planning? What is the purpose of a biodiversity management committee in the panchayat? What is this committee which is set up for the development plan of the village? These are things which cannot be done by the old operators. They have to get out of the system, and you have to get in a whole lot of people who are very highly educated, who are also in gainful employment elsewhere, but they say, no, we are going to take charge of these local bodies because unless we take charge, constitutionally panchayats will never do what they are supposed to do. And when we went to a court, as a matter of fact, once a court asked us, why should the GCZMA do anything? Why should the government do anything? A coastal panchayat has got as much powers to do anything in the CRZ as anybody else. And so he put all the onus on the coastal panchayat, said, you demolish, you do whatever you want. But you have to do it because you are a constitutional body. But till today, no panchayat does that. They still say town planning is approved, CRZ is approved. No, CRZ can only approve technically whether a building is permissible in that area, whether a resort is permissible in the area. But the CRZ cannot give you a development permission. The CRZ, that can come with the PDA or that can come with the panchayat. The CRZ cannot give you a development permission. They've got nobody. They are not body under any local town planning law to give you a permission to put up a building in CRZ. That has to be done only by the panchayat. But if
so what you are essentially,
the decision is taken by somebody else, you have given it away. You have given away your power.
But what you're essentially saying is that there are enough acts and there is enough to go by. The constitution empowers you, but the panchayats do not really have the right people in place to ensure that these acts are properly implemented.
Even if they are not able to get everybody around them. Sometimes you have a dynamic sarpanch, but all the others are interested in only making deals because the message that political positions are actually plums for doing business, that is percolated now to the punch level. Now, if any atrocity is being committed in the coastal area, for example, or in a forest area in the panchayat, the punch is the first person to know. The punch is the first person to extort money. The punch is the first person to keep the information only at that level so it doesn't go to the panchayat. To protect the party who is doing the illegal business, it's the punch. All punches now, you can say, have become exactly the same as MLAs and members of parliament. They see that this is a business. You have to make money while you are there during those 4 to 5 years because you may not come back because this is a roulette. And if you don't come back, you have lost. Maybe you'll come back later. But right now, this is your chance and this is what you do.
Right. The last question, Claude, is to do with people and the role that people and activists and young people have played, whether it is Mole or anything else. What I basically wanted to ask is that do you feel that Goa is one of the rare states which is blessed with good active people like we have at this point of time, and the fact that this activism is something that is going to stand Goa in good stead?
I would say that is our greatest blessing and that is our greatest asset. In no other part of the country, in such a small place, you have such a huge number of people. And after Molai, it is mostly young people who are coming out in the streets, who are occupying social media, who are spending time on environmental issues. And they have made an impact. If you look at the CEC report, one entire paragraph and entire pages of volume 2 are devoted to the objections that have been filed by civil society, not by Goa Foundation, but by hundreds of people all over the country, and all of them led by people and young people of the state of Goa. This is our greatest blessing and our greatest asset. And they are the ones who will ultimately ensure that there will be at least protests if there's environmental destruction. And I am truly amazed at WhatsApp and Facebook and the amount of information is coming out, photographs that keep coming out. It's only we are not able to cope with the scale of the damage, but the information is coming up, and if only we had a very good, intelligent, government, they would, use this information for the benefit of the Goan public and Goa's environment. But unfortunately, they are in league most of the time with the perpetrators, and no perpetrator will be doing what he is doing without the tacit consent of the government and its administrative officials.
Last question, Claude, and I'll end with a slightly contentious question. See, even while the majority of the groups, the NGOs and others are well-meaning and they love Goa and they fight for Goa, would you also admit that there is some kind of politics and there's some black sheep which have crept into the NGO people's movement as well, and the issue is that because the various kinds of social groups working cross purposes, it sometimes defeats the larger goal. Have you noticed a bit of that also? I mean, would you admit that even within the NGO and the social movement sector, there could be black sheep who are tarnishing the whole movement?
I'm not worried about black sheep, but I am happy with differences. We talk about biodiversity. Biodiversity is difference. And as many differences that we have among the groups, there's no difficulty because it also conveys to the government that it's not one body, but it's several bodies with different objections, different objectives, different perspectives who seek to make a point on any issue. And that is a strong point. It's not a weak point. And therefore, I am very happy that there are hundreds of groups apart from the Goa Foundation who may agree or may not agree with the Goa Foundation, but who are part of the environment movement as a whole and who are pushing forward. It's like a coalition government, a coalition government. How did the BJP and the CPM form a government in New Delhi during Vajpayee's time?
No, I understand that. But do you feel that there are no aberrations? There are no aberrations. There are no Judases, as it were, who are trying to kind of disrupt the movement from within. I mean, in the sense, in this overall landscape, are you feel you're totally protected by these kind of groups or NGOs?
See, I'm a realist. I know that there will be people who have got their own private agendas. There will be people who are linked with political parties. There are people who are starting out political parties. If we take, for example, this Revolutionary Goans. Now, the other day, Revolutionary Goans, Manoj Parab went to Vaingini Beach and he did a post. And the Goa Foundation thought the post was a very good post, so we put it up on our website. It doesn't mean that we agree with RG and we are supporting the political party or we are going to mobilize in their support. We are saying wherever people are objecting to the destruction of the natural environment of Goa, they are doing a sound thing for whatever purpose, it's okay. They're at least highlighting the issue. It's better than all the political parties who are all hiding their heads in the sand, who don't want to take up any issues. Like Digambar Kamat's latest statement that the Vaingini Beach issue is before the court. I mean, what sort of an answer is that? I mean, everybody knows that it was because of Digambar Kamat that ultimately 40 members of the Goa Assembly, including Manoj Parrikar, got together and voted to save 6,000 square meters of their property from the acts that had been directed by the Supreme Court. Everybody knows this. So everybody knows that when it comes to brass tacks, all the politicians, whoever is there at that particular time, is going to be in league with the environment the people who are terrorizing and damaging the environment. We know this. If Congress comes back again, it'll be the same thing. If Aam Aadmi comes also, it'll be the same thing. If Revolutionary Goans comes also, it'll be the same thing. We don't think that the secret lies in having a strong civil society, which is there at the moment in Goa. Hundreds of groups in different villages, all fighting for CZMP, for regional plan, for ODPs, for land use, against sand extraction, against mining, that keeps this society alive. And that convinces the rest of the population that this is a Mahabharat that is going on. We have got to take sides. We have got to be either with the side with the next generation, or we side with the older generation, which only believes in the next 5 years, and when after that is on its way out, and they are not concerned about what happens after the next 5 years. So I am very happy with turmoil, with controversy, and if there is there are some black sheep. I don't consider people are very, very discriminate when it comes to eliminating black sheep from the fold. Eventually, everybody knows. Now they treat all politicians as black sheep. Tomorrow they will also be treating some NGOs as black sheep. They are discriminating enough to know who's on their side and who's not on their side. But ultimately, I will refuse to run down any fellow environmentalist as long as he is raising environmental issues on behalf of the public and on behalf of the environment.
Thank you, Claude. I think this was a wonderful conversation on Environment Day. I hope a lot of these takeaways will be implemented, and the younger generation obviously have people like the Goa Foundation and so many other organizations to look up to see that Goa in the future is protected. Thank you very much.
Thank you.